Today's general meeting is January 9th, 2025, putting your house in order. Okay, and now I'm going to go to, ooh, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Deborah Smith Gregory, and I serve as the president of the NAACP Newark branch. Welcome to our first general meeting for 2025. I would like to ask our health chair to open our meeting with prayer.
Let us pray. Dear God, we come to you this evening thanking you for this day, thanking you for the meeting of the minds of our NAACP Newark branch. May we be able to give good information and have a good meeting of the minds. May we receive it and go forth and spread the news that we have encountered with each other into our community. All that I ask, may it be received. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So, typically we play Lift Every Voice and Sing. Um, Sometimes I ask folks to sing it. But today I want us to just we're geared up for 2025, but I just want to share with you our information and activities of what we did in 2024 in lieu of the Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I'm going to play our video that we have been sharing with our members and the community.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of you have seen that video, but I just wanted to make sure that the community is aware of all of the activities and the work that the branch is doing. And so to that end, I'm asking the committee chairs that are on to just give remarks about their particular committee and inviting you to come on board because we need help. So our first committee chair is Ali McBride. Ali, you're on mute, Ali. Unmute yourself. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to you. Unmute yourself, but we'll come back to you and we'll go to health to Mia Wilson.
So good evening again, everyone. My name is Tamia Wilson, and I am the Health Committee Chair, and our Vice Chair is Lizelle Lewis Yearwood. We are committed to bringing information to our community and resources about what's going on as far as anything health, mind, body, and spirit. And so we have been committed in working with right now our coalition to save University Hospital. And what I mean by that is there has been talks of the merger with University Hospital and Rutgers and what that may mean for access to healthcare. So we have been going into the community and educating our community about the Newark Agreement, which is very important. And what is happening right now is there is a billboard up to inform our greater area about the Newark agreements. Also, just as far as anything, as far as blood drives and health fairs and access to health careers, things of that nature. We are working diligently to bring that information and speakers to inform our community. So we are looking for committee members to join us. We meet every second Tuesday of the month at 6:30 via Zoom. You could, if you are interested in the health committee, you could email us at health1@NorcNAACP, health1@NorcNAACP@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamia, and thank you for the work. You saw
Excuse me. Excuse me. Is that Nork spelled out or is it NWK?
Let me
we can
double
put it
check.
in the chat.
Yes, I will put it in the chat.
We'll put
I
it in
can
the
do
chat.
that. Thank you, Lizelle.
There we go.
Health1@NorcNAACP. There we go.
And we will also put it in the chat on Facebook. We welcome our Facebook viewers as well. Ali McBride is our chair of civic engagement. Ali?
Yes, ma'am. Am I off mute? Am I off mute now?
You
Yes,
are.
I
yes.
don't know what was going on just now. I apologize. Of course, like she said, I'm Ali McBride, chair of the Civic Engagement Committee. Vice Chair is Deborah Chandler. And just like the Health Committee, we got a whole lot going on. And we have, like Tamia said with the Health Committee, we have a whole lot of room for people to help. Trust me. And especially with this year, because we have a whole lot going on in the city of Newark. Um, of course, we have three elections, two major ones, and one that most people probably don't pay attention to. There's an assembly election. We have a school board election that's going to be coming up in March, but we have preparation. We have some preparation that we need to make for the school board forums, and tentatively they're scheduled for March the 13th, Thursday, March the 13th. And as anyone knows that, as we do them, we've been very successful over the past few years doing them, and we're going to need help. We need help, and we never have enough help, but we make do. So we got that coming up, and then of course the election will be on March the 14th. Then we have a governor's election, and that's going to be the primary will be coming up in April. And then, after April, you have the major one going on. And we have a lot of big things slated for that, hopefully, tentatively. As anyone knows that has been involved in the political process, we were very successful last year with the congressional debate, which wasn't going to happen, but we formed a coalition with other NAACP branches, and it was a success. We had close to 500 people come out to that panel, and it was good. And we're looking forward to making the governor's election and possibly the primary panel successful. And then right after that, of course, that they're going to have the actual governor's election, and then we have an assembly election. As Samia said, we need help, and we need help. And hopefully, you all find it in your power to, maybe not just join one organization, but join two, split your time. But if it's something that truly interests you, please come out to help us. It's not a lot. We have a lot of fun. It's only a few of us, but we have fun, and the work needs to get done. If you are a citizen of Newark or have some love for Newark, please engage us and please help us. All right. And I guess that'll conclude my report.
Thank you. Our next report will be from our Criminal Justice Chairperson, Rick Robinson.
Good evening, Newark family. Listen, I am blessed, and I want to give kudos to the Newark, New Jersey NAACP branch because I truly believe in serving your community, and you will be blessed 10 times over. So, my name is Rick Robinson. I'm the chairperson for the Criminal Justice Committee, and we had an outstanding year last year. We did have some bumps, regarding my problem with my family and court matters, but we have pretty much went past that, and we're actually in a good place right now. So I want to thank the North branch for praying for my family and pretty much helping us get through it. So, in my view, you have an obligation to actually serve your community. We all serve our community, and we can actually use some assistance. So let me tell you about some of the things that we have done with the Criminal Justice Committee last year. The North Branch spearheaded a statewide United States Attorney's Office of New Jersey meeting with all the Black organizations and civil rights organizations in New Jersey. The North Branch spearheaded that. The North Branch also spearheaded conversations with the FBI. The North Branch also spearheaded conversations with the AG, the Attorney General. And we have also been involved with matters regarding the Division of Civil Rights and all other agencies. For 2025, my focus with a great, strong criminal justice committee is to focus on everything in Newark. Yesterday, I was given information by President Smith Gregory regarding the problems at our prison in Newark. So I need you to actually team up either with me on the Criminal Justice Committee or with any other committee so we can actually do better work. We are already an outstanding organization, no doubt, but we can actually use individuals like yourselves to actually apply more pressure and to gain justice. So we meet every fourth Tuesday by Zoom at 6:30, and I look forward to actually engaging with you pertaining to our works for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Our next committee chairperson you'll hear from is Tara Williams Harrington, chairperson of the Economic Development Committee. Tara, are you still with us?
Hello, how is everyone? I apologize for my delay. I was trying to do three things at once, but good evening, everyone. Harrington Economic Development Committee. We accomplished a lot last year, but really what I just want to remind everyone is that we have a lot to do this year coming up in 2025. Our meeting will be the fourth Thursday of this month at 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So bring your lunch, log on, and we would like to get to work to ensure that our membership has the information they need to grow themselves economically, whether it's through a business, through their work, or just improving their family situation. And we need your help to get that done. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of programs we want to put forward, some surveys we would like to send out to people to ensure that we are bringing to them what they want and what they need. And we are just looking for you to help us get that done. Again, our meetings are the fourth Thursday of the month at 12:30 in the afternoon. And shortly, I think during this meeting, we will send out a link so that you can then just share what your interest is and what committees you would like to participate in so we can reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have other active committees. The chair people are not with us this evening, but I would like to acknowledge the other committees that we do have that are working, functioning. We have Education Committee, Religious Affairs Committee, an AXO, a very vibrant AXO committee, and Environmental Justice. And if you are interested, you can email the branch at Newark NAACP. We will send out some information. And as it is, let's see, I think that no, I thought that was our environmental justice chair coming on, but it's not. So Asada Rashidi is the chair of environmental justice. Colette Jackson Bell is the chair of AXO. Judith Favors, Elder Judith Favors, is the chair of religious affairs. And right now we have an open a chairperson's slot for education. And we're looking forward to getting it filled, even though the committee itself is still doing the work. We're looking for a chair. So if you have any questions about our work, please stay in touch with us. We send out an e-newsletter at least once a month on Constant Contact. Sometimes it might go into your spam box. If you're not getting something from us, please email us and let us know, and we will work to rectify it because the the power is in the community. And if we stay in touch and we work together collectively, we can empower our community. And the goal of this branch is to inform, to empower. And so I'm going to go on to our um, guest presenter. And typically, uh, In January, last January, we had the surrogate's office come on. Typically in January, that is the time when we start thinking about resolutions, how to do things better, be better, have better. Sometimes January is considered the dry month for people where they abstain from drinking, just sometimes just based on the fact that they've binged over the holidays. We rush to join the gyms to get in shape. With some of us embark on the Daniel fast to purge our system and to regroup our spirituality. We eat more healthy. We take vitamins. We want to start our year off by putting our house in order. We make sure we don't have any dirty laundry. We throw out things. We reorder. We do all of that, and that is admirable. But the one topic, no matter what time of the year it is, whether it's the top of the year and we want to reboot and restart, or the end of the year, talking about death is uncomfortable for us. It is difficult for us. Um, and we even if we are very vigilant about keeping our house in order with the bills and the finances, if we don't take care of that part, then we leave behind a mess. And sometimes we just want to act like it doesn't matter. I don't care. Let GoFundMe take care of it. That is not what we get to do. That is not what we get to do for our loved ones and for ourselves. And with so much death swirling around us for the past 4 years, we have to reckon with it, whether we want to or not. We have to reckon with it. And so we wanted to start off this year. It's a good time to reflect and to converse about having records of your own personal affairs, what you would like to see happen or for your homegoing, what you would like to um, uh, leave to your loved ones to help them build family and generational wealth. And so we have with us today, our guest presenter is Carolyn Whigham. And while I don't need to introduce her, I want to, right? She is the CEO of Whigham Funeral Home. She is our neighbor. She is in the community. She supports the community. She adds value to the community. And you will see her in and about the community all the time. This has been a family-owned business, family-owned and operated business for 3 generations. Charles Whigham founded Whigham's Funeral Home in 1943. It was a family affair from the beginning, with his wife Marie doing the cosmetology, using her cosmetology skills to make people look beautiful and peaceful. Word got out. Their homegoings became known for style and class, dignity, and extraordinary professional decorum. Carolyn has continued that legacy. Their reputation is still one of quality and professionalism. And she also, in terms of benefiting the community, goes out and talks about the hard conversation that we need to have, so that we are prepared for ourselves as well as our loved ones. And I am very honored to have her on. But I will say this. So she adds value to the community, but she is in business, right? And so we don't get to ask for the freebies when it comes time to handle the business. We have to put our house in order so that we don't have to deal with that part of, oh, can you give me the hookup? No, you can't get the hookup. We must be prepared, right? And now, with everything swirling around us and the climate in which we live, we must put our house in order on all levels. I present to you Carolyn Whigham.
Wow, Deborah, you should travel with me a lot with all of that. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. And let me just say to you, all of you, thank you so much for this opportunity, because so often the last person you want to talk to is a funeral director, but we should be one of the people that you do sit down and talk with. Planning and talking about death is something that we just don't want to do. We will plan an anniversary. We will plan a wedding. We will plan vacations 2 and 3 years in advance. But we will never, ever sit down and sit with our family to discuss, God forbid, if something would happen to me, what would I want? Would I want to be buried? Now, listen, I have some people say to me, well, just put me in the backyard. You can't do that. It's illegal. So let's get real. I cannot bury you in your backyard. I cannot dig a hole in your yard and put you there. So we have to be realistic from the standpoint of saying, God forbid, if something happens, do I want to be buried? What cemetery do I want to be buried in? Do I want to be cremated? But let's put a pause there for a moment. So many of us, and particularly as we become older, we tend not to want to share. And when I say share, what I'm talking about is you do not want to discuss with your family where you want your valuables to be distributed. One. Two, where are your documents? One of the vital things in making funeral arrangements is that we must know your social security number. Do your children, do your grandchildren know where your important papers are? Do they know to go in the Bible? In the back of the Bible, you've shared everything. There should be somewhere or someone that you trust. And that's going to be a big word that I'm going to use quite often tonight in my conversation. So often in life, we are typically married. And when we're married, typically everything goes to your spouse. But when that death occurs and your spouse predeceases you, did you change the beneficiary on your life insurance policy? Because if John is deceased and you still have him as the beneficiary, you're opening Pandora's box. Not that that insurance cannot be used, but if John has children out of wedlock, you got a problem. That child out of wedlock will get a part of those assets. So what we need to begin to do is create a folder or a file, and maybe you can trust, if not someone in your family, a neighbor, a friend, or perhaps even your pastor. And with that, you would share with him your social security number. Where do you bank? You don't have to give him the amount in your bank account, but you need to tell him Wells Fargo Bank. And the account number is, he can't touch it. No one can touch it because it's in your name. But at least it allows your family to know where they need to begin to look for assets. So, I've learned that as we have become older, a good time to sit down to discuss prearrangements or what you want is at a family reunion. You have all of your family there. And what's wrong with sitting down after dinner? You're sitting around and you're talking and say, you know what? I just want y'all to know, when I make my transition, I want to be buried at Evergreen Cemetery. That would lead someone to say, well, Nana, do you own a grave at Evergreen? Oh, no, Nana doesn't own a grave. So that's telling your family they have to buy a grave when you make your transition. Or I want to be cremated. Now, this is the problem. If you have relatives, let's say your children, and you're talking about wanting to be cremated, but they are against it, if they don't sign the documents for a cremation, you cannot be cremated. The only way is to sign a document that is called an agent. And that means you are delegating someone to be totally in control of your funeral. It's called a funeral agent. That document can be used throughout the United States. So there's a lot of things that are involved in discussing death. I'm going to give you some of the pros and some of the cons. Under talking about death, some of the pros are at least people know your wishes. You're telling them what you want. From the opposite standpoint, they have no idea what you want. Whether you want to be buried in a white dress, blue suit, green suit, gray suit. Some of this seems maybe crazy to you, but you have no idea how many families go to a funeral home with ShopRite shopping bags full of stuff that they bring to the funeral director to have to sift through because nothing has been set aside. And a lot of the stuff that we have to go through is obsolete. Either they're no good or of no value. So when you don't put your house in order, you're throwing your burden onto your family, which does not give them the opportunity to grieve. Grieving is very important, and everybody grieves differently. But if your house is not in order, there's more bickering, there's more arguments, there's more attitudes. And do you really want your family mad at your funeral? But if you haven't put things in order, that tends to happen. Then one of the things you may want to consider is your choice of funeral home. Just because I'm doing this presentation, by no means are you obligated to me. But you may say, well, I like Mr. Arnold at Perry Funeral Home, or I like Mrs. Cotton at Cotton. At least you should tell your family your choice of a funeral home. Under prearrangements, it makes it a lot easier for your family members when you make your transition and to make a phone call and call that designated funeral home and say, I want to let you know my Nana passed. Her name is Carolyn Whigham. Do you have a prearrangement? Oh, yes, we do. Well, let me tell you what your Nana put down. She wants her funeral at Metropolitan Baptist Church. She only wants a Saturday funeral. She owns a grave at Evergreen Cemetery. She wants to be buried next to her husband. All of those things already orchestrated. So in discussing death, it's a subject that we don't want to talk about, but it is something that's going to be inevitable. It is something that we all will have to experience. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to throw the burden onto your family. That's not fair. If you know you have children and your 2 children or 3 children don't get along, you can imagine, or can you imagine, the one that they don't get along with, all the heck or hell that child can raise in trying to orchestrate your funeral arrangements. Don't do that. You have no idea how many fights, physical fights, that occur in a funeral home when children or family members are dysfunctional because they're angry, because maybe they didn't do the right thing. Maybe when Nana said, go get me a loaf of bread, you denied to do it. And now you got guilt because you didn't go and Nana passed. So there's a lot of issues or circumstances that can cause a rift in a family. One of the biggest things is a GoFundMe account. Miss Deborah mentioned it. Do you know, and I'm going to ask you all that are on this call, would you want your business in the street with people putting out a GoFundMe account to raise money to bury you? Would you really want that? I don't think so, but it happens day after day. And in those GoFundMe, sometimes they put it out and sometimes only $50 is raised. Look how embarrassing, even more embarrassing that is. So in putting your house in order, it's really sitting down, just like in church when the pastor says, you need to get your house in order. He's talking from a spiritual. I'm talking from a realistic aspect of death. Number 1, where do you bank? Number 2, your social security number. Where can it be found? Number 3, were you ever in the military? Where's a copy of your DD-214, which is a discharge paper? You cannot get a flag without a DD-214. Were you honorably discharged or were you dishonorably discharged? If you're dishonorable, you're not going to get a flag. So again, all of these play a role. All of us nowadays work by computer. Who knows your password? Where can they find your password with all of your data that they might need to lay you to rest? Do they know how to obtain your relatives? Who's your brother? Where's your sister live? Here's a good question. One of the things that is required on your death certificate is your mother's maiden name. Now, you know it. Do your children know your mother's maiden name? Do your grandchildren know your mother's maiden name? Do your grandchildren know who your biological father was? Those are questions that are on a death certificate. How many years of education did you have? High school, college, master's degree, doctor's degree. That is a requirement on a death certificate. So there's things that you all can sit around and joke about, but it's a conversation that needs to be held. And it should be a conversation where you're in a comfortable environment. Nobody's arguing, nobody's debating, but you're laying out to your family what your wishes are. I had a scenario where a wife came in and made her pre-arrangements. And at that time, she said to her husband, Johnny, why don't you make yours now too? John said, no, baby, I don't want to do mine right now. You go ahead. So she made her pre-arrangements. And about 5 years later, she made her transition. And in her pre-arrangements, she had her service at one of the local churches, and she was placed in the cemetery at Fairmount Cemetery in an extra deep grave, meaning the space above her was reserved for her husband. So at the funeral, I shared with Mr. John, don't forget your wife wanted you to come back and do a pre-arrangement. No problem. So I saw Mr. John maybe about 2 years after his wife made her transition. And Mr. John was employed at the Board of Ed. That was his employment and where he retired from. I said, Mr. John, when you going to come by? Oh, Carolyn, don't worry about it. My kids know what I want. I want the same thing my wife had. Well, listen to this. When Mr. John made his transition, his children were the beneficiary of his life insurance. And guess what they did? A direct cremation. They kept the money for themselves. Now, I'm not chastising anyone, but I don't think that is what Mr. John wanted, nor what his wife intended when she came and he came together. So these are some of the things that we need to think about. Who are we going to put in charge of our funeral arrangements? And whoever you put, can you trust them? Trust is a key word, no different than your bank account. You're not going to put that granddaughter's name on your bank account who don't speak to you or who's disrespectful to you, who don't do anything for you. I would hope not. I would hope not. But if you do, you may have the same situation. Did Mr. John, the question is here, did Mr. John sign to be cremated? You cannot sign your own cremation order. It has to be done by your next of kin. So I'm saying to you, anybody on this call that wants to be cremated, signing your own cremation order is not legal. The only way it can be done is by that agent, funeral agent. So one of the things that we want to share with you in doing and planning is you should know what you want. We're old enough and grown enough to really sit down and say, at some point, God's going to call me. What is it that I would like to do? What is it that I would want? If I want to be cremated, let me share that with my family, that they clearly understand. Even if they don't agree with it, that's your wishes. It's important that we verbalize how we feel about things. If you have 5, 6, 7, 8 children, whatever it may be, and the kids think that you favor one over the other, cover yourself by saying this. I'm naming Jane as my beneficiary because she will do what I want. And maybe you don't need to say that out loud. Maybe that should be a conversation with you and Jane to say, Jane, I'm going to trust you to understand these are the issues that I want upon my demise. but conversating and talking about a prearrangement is important. So let's talk about the financial part. I don't know about you all, but now that I'm older, I used to stay up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning watching TV. And there's a TV commercial that comes on around 1 o'clock. And it says the average cost of a funeral is $9,000. Hear the words that I said. The average cost of a funeral is $9,000. That $9,000 does not include your casket. It does not include your cemetery. It does not include your vault. It does not include your limo. It does not include your hearse. Those are just the basic things of the 9,000, which is the embalming, the dressing, the casketing. That's in your 9,000. That has nothing to do with your casket or cemetery. So often when people go in to make funeral arrangements and they see that I'll use as an example, Rose Hill Cemetery, a new grave at Rose Hill Cemetery in Linden is $7,500. I'm going to say it again. Rose Hill Cemetery in Linden, new grave, space for 2, $7,500. So if you add the cemetery to the 9, you're over $12,000. So people need to understand, y'all need to start putting funds away for what you want. One of the things you can do is buy your grave. Go to the cemetery and purchase your grave now. You can pay on it weekly, monthly, annually. That's a couple of things. In doing a prearrangement at any funeral home here in the state of New Jersey, the money does not belong to the funeral home. It is your money. It is governed by an agency called Choices, CHOICES, which is the New Jersey Pre-Need Trust Fund. New Jersey Pre-Need Trust Fund. You can have the money set up in that account that pays interest, and as the interest grows, it is added into your account. But it is your money. You have the right to close it out at any time with no penalty. So I've tried to briefly hit on a couple of things. I know there's going to be a bunch of questions and answers. And, in discussing funeral arrangements and things like that, it's not an easy 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm trying to give you all some of the basics to assist you when it comes to this journey. Deborah, any questions beyond what I've done?
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for this wonderful presentation. If I want to make sure I understood you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in being cremated.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that I cannot just say that and not be honest? Somebody else has to say, or did I misunderstand you?
Absolutely. You can put it in your will. It don't mean nothing. It
Why
means
is that?
that's the law. That's the law.
Oh.
So listen to me. I will share this with Deborah, or you can contact my office. The document is called, and it's through the state of New Jersey, Appointment of Agent to Control the Funeral and Disposition of the Human Remains. It is a New Jersey document. What you will do, you will fill it out. You will designate who that person will be to sign the cremation order, but it cannot be signed by you. You can put it in your will. You can write it all over any place you want to write it. It means absolutely nothing.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a question from Facebook, actually 2 questions. How much is a mausoleum? And how much money can be put away in a prearrangement trust fund?
Okay, the prearrangement trust fund starts with a minimum deposit of $250, 250. Mausoleums vary according to cemetery. In the local area, the only cemeteries right now that has mausoleum in this local area would be Glendale Cemetery in Bloomfield, New Jersey, Hollywood Cemetery, Hollywood Memorial Park, and Cemetery in Union. They average about $6,000 to $7,000. And
So
each one of them have different fees.
if a grave is 7,500 for two, what would that be for a single?
Same price. They don't charge extra whether it's open, extra deep or not.
Wow.
So the grave is 7,500, whether it's one person in there or two.
Okay. Rick Robinson, you have a question? And you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, President Gregory. Um, Ms. Whigham, I just want to commend you on your excellent work and your visibility in the Newark community. You actually, took care of my father when he passed away. So I'm
I
very
remember.
thankful to you and your organization
Thank
and to
you.
your family. Um, a question for me is, would it be better to plan as a family to come to your office, or what would you prefer? Because a lot of us have other family members, and a lot of people want to be buried next to their siblings or mother and father. So,
Mhm.
what would you actually consider or recommend?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a twofold answer. Number one, you need to contact that cemetery where your loved ones are and make sure that there's space next to them. Meaning, if one of your family members made their transition in 2019, I doubt if there's space next to them because the cemeteries fill the area according to the deaths. So your first thing should be is to make sure that there's space next to your loved one as to where you all want to be interred. With regards to prearrangement, we try to make it real simple. I do what is called DocuSign. I send you everything via DocuSign. That way you can sit in the comforts of your home, filling out the documents, and then we'll meet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Carolyn, how do you convince yourself or a family member to pre-plan arrangements?
I think the easiest thing is so often we go to funerals, and I don't know about other funeral homes, but for me, I make a point. When I'm at the graveside or whether at the church or the mausoleum, I always say to the family, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to follow the instructions that were done by your mother in 2005. She came to me in 2005 and sat down and designated what she wanted, and this is what we did. Thank you. Now, that's different. I think it should be something that you should not be afraid of planning a funeral arrangement. We plan a wedding, we plan a birthday party, we plan all these things. What is wrong with sitting down and saying to you, to your cousin, to your niece, to your nephew, hey, let's just kick it. If something happened to you, what would you want? Well, number one, I want to be buried. I don't want to be cremated, or vice versa. You will find when a prearrangement is done, it is so much simpler because everything has been instructed by that person. All we're doing when that person makes their transition is setting day and time. Everything else they've done, they've selected the casket, they've selected the church, they've selected what cemetery, they've done. Some families, Deborah, even bring me their clothes and say, this is what I want, put it away. And we lock it up. We put it away. That God forbid if something happens, mama has done everything. All you got to do is show up. That's the benefit of a prearrangement. You're not scratching your head trying to find assets, don't know what bank account. And here's one of the scenarios. Everyone seems to think because I have a bank account in my name that automatically my spouse or my children can get access to it. Absolutely wrong. If that bank account is solely in my name, you got to go through surrogate's court to touch a penny of it. So what does that mean? That means your loved one is chilling with me while y'all find the money. That's the simplest way to say it. And does it happen? Absolutely. It does.
I can attest to that.
So, in who comes to make arrangements. Sometimes you know how you have that community person that goes with everyone. Is that the person you're grieving and you're at your wits' end, you're in an emotional state? Is that the person that everyone knows always goes to the funeral home? Is that the person that you should lean on or tell your family members, look, if something happens to me, check out the person that always goes to the funeral home?
Again, Deborah, that word is trust. That's the biggest word. That person, let me say it to you this way. I have had more experiences with people who have AIDS. I'm not calling out any names, where seniors have AIDS and the AIDS have ripped them off, took their money. They've gone to the bank and took their card and swiped. So I'm not going to say it should be that uh, person in the neighborhood or whatever. I personally think it should be the individual. What better way can you tell me about yourself? Because in my conversation with families making pre-arrangement, I want to know as much as I can about that person whose funeral arrangements they are setting up. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite song? What did you enjoy doing? That allows me to have more of a personal and closer relationship that, God forbid, when that person makes their transition, I know already that there's what's the better way to say it? There's rift in the house. The sister and brother don't get along. It helps us to play, as a funeral director, we wear so many hats. We wear a lawyer's hat, we wear a doctor's hat, a psychologist's hat, a psychiatrist's hat, counselor. So, but it gives that funeral director that closeness of saying, I know you said that you want to change the casket, the trim from blue to gray. That's not what she wanted. She wanted blue. So I'd rather meet with that individual or the person that person trusts.
Atia, and Atia had her hand up, and John. Atia.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Carolyn, thank you so much for this presentation. It hits home and heart very closely. My grandmother had her arrangements prearranged at a funeral home in North Carolina, and she did this when she made arrangements to move my grandfather's remains from a family cemetery to one where she could now put the two of them together, right?
Right.
And she had everything laid out to what she was wearing, the color casket, everything. And so when she transitioned and she was sickly, we all expected it, but death is never something that you anticipate on how to handle. But when she transitioned, it was all the way down to I want to be in the ground within 4 days of my death. We didn't have to argue or do anything. The funeral home had everything, including her insurance policies and numbers. Everything was set up ahead of time. And that was such a relief to us as a family. And then just recently, when my bonus dad transitioned, he didn't have all those things in place. And you have me and my bonus siblings, so my step family, all talking about which way things were going to go. Two funerals, one funeral. It was just very heart-wrenching to have to go through that as you're trying to grieve. So I think it's just so important about the information that you provided today for people to think about, because you take the burden, like you said, off of your families. And that helped us so much with my grandmother. All I had to do was get in the car and drive to North Carolina, like bringing her body from one place to the next. Everything was taken care of.
Right.
So I just wanted to say thank you.
All you had to do is figure out what you're going to wear. Wasn't that a wonderful feeling? That's all you had to worry about. And it makes a wonderful difference.
John.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Hey, John, how you doing?
Okay. I want to go back to the banking situation with with currencies in the bank. Even if you have designated a beneficiary when you open the account, that person can't present themselves at the institution and withdraw the money?
Okay, let me just give you clarity. There's several ways. You can have a bank account in your name, John. You can even have it as a POD, payable on death, to me. I'm just saying in general. It'd be a bank account in your name, naming whomever you wish as payable upon death, POD. With a death certificate, they can go to the bank and get the money. If the bank account is solely in your name, only your name, with no beneficiary or no POD, they have to go through surrogate's court.
Okay.
Clear?
And I still want to borrow the car for the prom. So.
Okay.
One of the a Facebook question is, what is the process if your loved one only had Medicaid or public assistance?
Okay. That's a whole different ball game, but let me just help you. If your loved one is under Medicaid, public assistance, the problem is no agency, which is Medicaid, will allow a funeral home to verify if they are eligible to participate in their burial until the transition takes place. So that would mean under the Medicaid program is entirely different. That's where the state steps in and the state contributes 95% of the funds towards the funeral. You're limited as to what you can and cannot do. And financially, I don't care what you pick and choose to have, you cannot invest out of your personal pocket from the family no more than $1,570.
Carolyn, can you speak about the use of social media?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me say this. You all are aware that we've done some, what I use the term high profile funerals. And social media sometimes can be your friend, and sometimes social media can be your worst enemy. I'll just hit you with a couple of them. When we did Whitney Houston, there was a picture that was leaked, and they alleged that the funeral home leaked the picture. We didn't leak that picture. We did not leak that picture. We knew who leaked the picture, but I was asked by my friend who has now made her transition, Sissy, not to divulge who it was. So we had to take the blunt for it. Some people some people feel that what we did, but if we took the picture, why would the family turn around and bring Bobby Christina to us, which was Whitney's daughter? Why would they turn around and bring Sissy Houston to us if we had taken the picture? Social media can be good and sometimes it can be bad. What you're finding now, that a lot of funeral homes, including ourselves, are doing live streams. Most funeral homes are doing live streams, which makes it accessible for people who do not want to get out their homes or travel or out of state. Social media can pick up stuff about families that people are running their mouths that don't need to be said. So I am not the greatest fan of social media, but it is what it is. I'm old school, y'all. I'm 76 years old. I ain't into praise God. I'm not into all that.
There is it's unfortunately it's the world in which we live.
Yeah.
The Facebook question, is it true that you should have another person on your bank account besides a pay upon death so that it can be easy to access the funds? I think that you did cover that.
Well, I'm gonna say it again. Trust, TRUST, because whoever's name is on that bank account has the same availability to tap it just like you do. So if they know where you bank, their name is on the account, they can mark down to that bank and withdraw every single penny out of that bank account. So you have to be careful who you name on the bank account because legally it's 50% yours and 50% theirs.
Okay, Janet Jackson has a question.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi.
Jan Jackson is Catherine Harris's daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And you know, you have long had a prearranged funeral. She's hanging in there at 102.
She used to work here.
Yes, and a friend of your parents.
Yes.
How can we make arrangements for a posted obituary? I'm noticing that the funeral homes are getting away from that. But for her 102 years old, I will do whatever you tell me to do to have an obituary posted.
Okay, the reason why funeral homes are swaying away from it, number one, because the Star Ledger, as all of you know, has really just dwindled down to zero. And most families don't want to pay what the Star Ledger is charging to do a publication of what we're used to of a obituary. That's where everything is listed, her name, where she was born, where she was employed,
Mhm.
and her relatives. They're charging around $500 to $600 for that type of notice. So that's
Mhm.
why most families are no longer using the Star Ledger. But the Star Ledger still will pick up a notice, a information on a deceased person from funeral homes websites. But yes, when
Okay,
you're ready
so
to do it, call me. Just call me up. We'll get it in.
just call you and we'll make
Yes,
special arrangements to do that.
absolutely. For Miss
Thank you so
Catherine,
much.
yes,
She's gonna
ma'am.
be so happy that I talked to you.
Give her a hug for me.
I will.
Hey, listen,
Thank you.
she taught me a lot of things I know.
She adores you.
Yes, ma'am.
She
Uh,
does.
Carolyn,
Yes,
you have said death can be a community event, but it is a family issue.
yes.
Can you expound on that a little bit? What
Well, you
you
know, everybody from around the corner, down the street, they got their input, right? But they really don't know per se what that individual wanted. And we so often, you know, we are so we're a different, how do I say this? We're just different. We want to tell everybody all our business, what I did, what's in my bank account, who's my beneficiary. And what happens is you get other people in your business, I'm gonna say it this way, in your business that don't need to be in your business. So one of the issues we have to learn to deal with is a certain thing called secrecy, being respectful of what we share as a family. But what happens is you get to talking to the neighbor, the granddaughter talks to this person. You know, let me share this. I'm going sidebar. Let me go sidebar. I had an experience. This is maybe about 30 years ago. I was at a restaurant and people didn't recognize me. Had a baseball hat on. I was sitting there. And this young lady was discussing with her boyfriend all the details about her grandmother's funeral, to the down to how much the funeral cost, what her grandmother died from, what assets her grandmother had. Now, she's talking loud enough for me to overhear it. She said her grandmother's name, she mentioned the funeral home, and I'm like, does she realize that people are picking up on this kind of conversation? People do funeral programs and they put on the funeral program where the person lived. Don't do that. That's how you're going to get robbed. You don't put an address. If you do a funeral program, don't put the repast on the program because you're going to be feeding people that you don't know. So if I'm responding to your question, I hope I am. Um, this career in this industry is so different. It's no different than your doctor. How much do you share with your family when you come back home from the doctor? Do you tell them everything or do you tell them what you want them to know? Just you have to get to a point of the word trust. And the easiest way to do this is take it upon yourself to come to a funeral home of your choice. Sit down with that funeral director, have a conversation. Even if you don't put a dime down, at least you need to let them know what your wishes are. Share it with your pastor. I know pastors are busy, but if there's a relationship, you should be able to say to your pastor, Pastor, I have a bank account. It's at Wells Fargo Bank. The account is only in my name, and here's the account number. He can't touch it. But at least if something happens to you, we know where the bank account is. We know whoever's the next of kin. If there is such, we wind up going to surrogate's court. So it's a lot, y'all, but it can be done. And it should be a topic of conversation. Stop not talking about it. You're
And
being
speak
unfair to yourself.
and speaking of not talking about it, so we don't talk with each other as adults. How do we handle death and youth?
Call the popo. Young people grieve so differently, y'all. Last couple of week ago, we had someone young. Last Saturday. Um, let's begin how they come dressed. They don't come dressed for a funeral. They come dressed like they're going to the club. The average ones. They come with a demeanor of intentional to come in tough, rough. Young people nowadays, in my opinion, have little or no respect for the deceased. It's an issue where back in the day, how people would put notches on their gun, as the number of people that they killed. It's kind of like the difference between our society or my generation and their generation is sometimes night and day. Young people, when I mean young people, I'm talking about the young people. It's like, oh, what the heck? Do a GoFundMe account. Oh, I'll go raise the money. They have a different form of respect of the deceased. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start a GoFund. I had a situation where I had 3 different people starting a GoFund account for the same individual. That's crazy. Insane.
Hmm. So as we wind up, can you go back to who needs to come to the funeral home to make the arrangements?
It should be
I want to make my arrangements.
it should be you. It should be you for yourself because no one can speak better than you as to what you want. Now, you
And
may
if
have
I
a
don't
situation
do it and someone else has to do it in my family, who should come to the funeral home?
who you trust, who you feel you can designate to come to the funeral home and select what you would like. You have some elder people that are elderly that can't come in, but you should convey to that person that I would say it this way. Before you have them pay any money or put a deposit on anything with a funeral home, go to the funeral home, sit with them, and bring back to me what you selected. Make sure you're comfortable what they chose because they could do either soup to nuts or just plain old soup. So it has to be what you want. So yes, it should be that individual, but if it cannot be you, send someone that you trust that you can designate to say, these are the things I want you to do.
And the last question, in terms of having the family talk, you said a good time to have it is at a reunion. Any other times that you can think of the family talk?
Well, you see, at birthday parties, you have strangers. At anniversaries, you have strangers. I think at a reunion, it's basically family. And you have the family on your side, you have the family on your husband's side. So you're bringing these 2 families together because the wife may want to be cremated, but the husband may want to be buried. That's important for them to know. So I think reunions, this is what I am finding now that they are asking me to come to more family reunions than anything. But I do similar to this at churches. I do go to churches and do seminars with my seniors because I feel that my seniors are not apprised of the prearrangements and the procedures in doing such. So yeah, right now I would push family reunions.
And the pre-planning, can you just uh, overview about what that entails? I know you said the minimum is at $250, and people use $250 to do all kinds of things. But just to give us an overview
Yeah.
of pre-planning, what that
Right.
looks like.
Pre-planning, Deborah, is simply this. You sit down with your funeral director, you indicate what you want. You may even get it down. I have some people that say to me, I only want a funeral on a Saturday and I want to be in the ground or in the grave by high noon. So it's doing that. It's indicating what color you want to wear. is indicating whether you don't want flowers or whether you do want flowers, what color casket. From a financial standpoint, you can start with a minimum of $250 and you can pay on it weekly, monthly, until you hit that figure of what you have selected. And bear in mind, what you select is growing interest. So I would suggest in pre-arrangement that before you come to a funeral home, just think about what you would want. Do you want a church funeral? Is your church large enough to have a funeral? If you belong to a small church, but you have a large family, are you being realistic to want to have your funeral at your church that seats 30 people and you got a family of 200? Those are some of the things that you gotta just deal with in a pre-arrangement.
Okay, and someone in the chat said, see, that's why I have to set my stuff up ahead of time because ain't nobody gonna choose no soup for me when I'm a soup to nuts person. So I wanted to thank you for this information. Putting our house in order is, it may not feel comfortable initially, but we all go to funerals and we say, and we see different things at funerals, and we'll say to the person that we went with, that's what I want at my funeral. We'll say that. Uh, but unless we put it in writing to say, these are the things that I want at my homegoing. If you don't want to use the word funeral, don't use that. Use homegoing.
Celebration of life. Yeah.
Right. So that you can feel comfortable talking about it while you're here to talk about it. If COVID didn't teach us anything else, it taught us the fragility of life, that we are here and then at any given time we're no longer here. So
Yeah.
if we take the time to really, hopefully, you will take the time this evening to start thinking about what you want if you haven't already made those arrangements, and decide who is the person, who is your trusted person, who is your person that you trust, and start having conversations. If it's too much to have a conversation all at one time, just at least initiate the conversation. We talk about it, but we don't talk about it. We just have to become more savvy and more courageous about acknowledging that no, we're not going to live forever.
Nope.
Then we say things like, well, if it doesn't go the way that I want it to go, I'm going to come back and haunt people. Well, why would you do that if you didn't tell them what you wanted? You know,
Absolutely.
so I thank you. If you, there is a worksheet that Carolyn has shared with us. If you want a copy, it's called Self Checks, and it's just 20 bullet items that she talked about. If you would like to get a copy of it, you can email the Newark NAACP, NewarkNAACP at Gmail, and we will send a copy to you just so that you can have it at your own leisure and you can do this in your own home. And Carolyn talked about, that we're older, but what we have come to know is that it's not about age.
Nope.
Age is supposed to make us wiser, but the death does not have an age limit, that it only deals with a certain age group. And so I implore you and urge you to give a phone call, if not to Carolyn, like she said, to a funeral home. If it's not here in Newark, wherever, if something catches your eye, and they should be willing to have a conversation with you first. That's what she said. Willing to have a conversation to answer your questions. That's number one. If they're not willing to have a conversation with you and answer your questions without getting some money, then that's pause for to make something to make you think about. we're taking we're taking a stand for our community. We want to inform our community, to empower our community, because whatever goes on, it always affects us most. So then that would mean that the how death hand happens in
Mhm.
our neighborhood and in our community and how we deal with it, it affects us most.
Mhm.
I thank you so much for this presentation. I just have a couple of announcements that I need to share with you. There is a March of Resistance on January 18th. It is being sponsored by People's Organization for Progress. Saturday, January 18th. They have done this march for many, many years. This year, the significance is based on what the political climate is. So, over 250 organizations have endorsed this march. It takes place Saturday, January 18th at 12 noon at the King Monument on Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. Yes, it is going to be cold. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but the first our first vice president always talks about having the courage of your conviction. And so in having that courage of your conviction, it means not just talking about what you don't like, but taking a stand and being about it. Now, if you can't come out because of your health or what have you, share it with other people so that they will come out. NAACP is one of the 250 organizations that have endorsed this march. To endorse it means that we want to have people to come out. And so the more people that come out, the bigger the statement is that we will be making to our community, to the world, because we have to make statements that are loud and clear from here to Washington, D.C. And then on January the 11th, this Saturday, in preparation for the march, there is a teach-in at Bethany Baptist Church from 1 to 3 p.m. The title of it is The Teachings of MLK versus Trump and Trumpism. It's not enough for us to get emotionally upset about what is happening in our country. We must get informed to be empowered. We must take a stand, but take it in a way that it's not just us pontificating and talking about it and what we don't like, but that we actually have a call to action to do something about it. This, as Ali McBride said, this is an election year. The assembly is up for election. The governor is up for election. The Senate is up for election. And the school board for Newark has an election. And the Central Ward, for those of you who might live in the Central Ward, has a vacant seat that someone will occupy based on an election. When we come out to vote, we show strength. When we stay home, we show weakness. We have to collectively show our strength because our community is strength. It's changing, things are changing, but the community is the power. So I just encourage you to get involved and get informed. And on that note, I think I think that Kathleen Turpin Merritt is a steward. Would you close our meeting, please?
Absolutely, with pleasure. Gracious God, thank you for this very informative meeting. Thank you for the Newark NAACP being an instrument of information to empower our people. Thank you for all attendees and the families that they represent. Thank you for the presenter, and thank you for giving us another opportunity to serve our community. We ask all these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you. And Carolyn, thank you so much for coming on. We don't want to be episodic. We welcome you to come back. We'll see how many people want to get the self-check sheet that you have made available to us to distribute. And we just appreciate this level of community. We are in the community working, make our quality of life better, even in death. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. God bless.